Hi Francesca, I hope you'll bear with me as I use this new tool, Screencast-O-Matic, to give you feedback on your website. Um, I hope to talk with you after to see how you felt about it. Alright, so right now I'm looking at the introduction page of your website. One of the things that I noticed overall is that you really want to read closely to make sure that things are grammatically accurate and are spelt right and are clear to the reader. For example, this is a little awkward how you begin here. As I am an aide, I would just say I am a teacher's aide or a teacher's assistant in a first grade class, etc., etc. So just read through really carefully and probably read aloud to make sure that there's not awkwardness. But I found some both here and in your cycle one. For example, this first sentence reads a little strange. The other thing, I think that your introduction needs to set the scene for the reader. So there should be an overview of your classroom. Even before that, a description of the school. You don't have to use any identifying names, but you want to set the scene for the reader so that they can be there with you as you read. It's like we'd like to say in writer's workshop, showing and not telling. So whether you include it right here in your introduction or you use another page to set the scene, so introduce the classroom, even before that a description of the school, and then you should move into phonics instruction in general. So down here you began to talk about Fundations as an explicit and systematic way to teach phonics. But I think an overall introduction to the teaching of phonics, why it is deemed so important in the research as a foundation to literacy, I think that starts out well, and then move into an introduction of Fundations. I love here how you have the Common Core standards. I think that's really great. And then I would move into an introduction and overall description of Fundations. For example, Fundations is an outgrowth of the Wilson reading system. And the Wilson reading system is based on the teaching of Orton Gillingham and the research of his group. So I think that is a really important piece to lead the reader into your teaching and the use of Fundations. This as an introduction is fine, just make sure that it links to those additions that I've asked you for as well. So when we click on cycle 1 here, again, just look for awkward phrasing and punctuation and grammar and spelling, so like the fact that you have aid capitalized. When you talk about Fundations, you want to have an APA citation there. Then you could even hyperlink it since you're working on the web in this multidimensional space. So you're working with one group, and I love how you took photographs of this interest survey. I think that talking about an interest survey and the spelling inventory you used as a starting point to learn about your students' needs is really important. I like how you gave these examples, how you analyze each one specifically. I would, right here, question 3, I would move it so that it's underneath question 2 and lined up. And then I think that you should include an overall analysis of these surveys. I think about so what, right? So what did you learn from these surveys that's going to inform your teaching? Did you learn from it that they don't think spelling is engaging, that they're bored? If so, that leads us to this, that you're going to do engaging hands-on lessons. Um, so you want to make that overall analysis clear. I also wondered, why do you have this text highlighted in yellow and then this text highlighted in blue? I think it's unnecessary. I think your headers should be consistent, and lead the reader to the different parts. I think the highlighting is actually a bit distracting. Next, I wanted to talk about the primary spelling inventory. When I look at these student assessments, I realize that this is not the primary spelling inventory, that this is actually an assessment from the Fundations program. So I would just eliminate, unless you did the primary spelling inventory, and that would yield different results. But I would talk about here, you know, assessing the students, and then I would you start to unpack it briefly here. The Foundation program assesses students by dictating sounds, words, and sight words, which the students must then write out. You have an awkward sentence. The dictations for this assessment are listed below. So be more specific. So are they assessed on a weekly basis? Are they assessed on each of the sounds and words? Be specific in how Foundations assesses the students, and then what you've learned based on these assessments, and then how specifically are these assessments going to inform your next steps. I like this, that you've looked over and you've noticed some strengths and needs based on this, and then these strengths and needs should inform your lesson planning. So going back to, so you've got this section right here, reflection on research, which is great. Just a quick glance without even reading it, you can tell that this part here is double spaced, this part here is single spaced. You want to make sure that that is, you know, revised. I notice here, without reading, that this Yop and Yop citation actually is missing a year, and when you include the page number, it means it's a direct quote, but it actually is not a direct quote, I don't think, because there's no quotation marks here or anything. So you want to check your APA throughout. You have Yop and Yop here, but you don't have the year. Again, I notice you have some quotes here. If these are quotations from your students, you need to say student A or whatever the student's name is, and then date it from when it's either in your teacher reflection notes, etc. So I've given you a lot of feedback, and I don't want to overwhelm you. I think you're doing a really great start. I think this is beautiful. I love the design. I think you just need to slow down and be careful with your writing, reread it, and think through some of the choices that you're making. But overall, this is a really strong start. I hope that this was helpful, and I look forward to talking to you more. All right, thanks, Francesca.